But first, fact-checking seems a little quaint after what we saw from the president last night. Should have been fact-checking in real time last night. But Steve Rattner has some on the economic claims that were made. Donald Trump said we're in a V-shaped economic recovery, that the virus interrupted the best economy ever, that he saved the manufacturing sector, and that the economy will crash if Biden gets elected. Steve, take us through your charts, and was the president saying the truth?
Thanks, Mika. And those are the four subjects on the economy that we do want to cover today. So let's start with this whole idea of a V-shaped recovery, which we've heard a lot about in the past. And we heard a little bit about it last night in the midst of all of the yelling and screaming that you've all been talking about now. So sad to watch all that happen. But you can see on this chart the enormous drop that the economy suffered in the second quarter, 22 million jobs lost through April, thanks to the pandemic. But you don't see a V. You don't see it coming back up the other side. What you see is 2.7 million jobs, 4.8, and so forth. But the pace of the recovery has been slowing. In August, it was 1.4 million jobs. This Friday, we'll get another number. It will probably be under a million. And all in all, we've only recovered about half of the jobs we've lost. And the same is true of the overall economy. Only about half of the loss of the size of the GDP will be recovered this year. So that's the story on the so-called V-shaped recovery. Now let's talk about his claim that even before the virus, he had the best economy ever. So this chart goes all the way back to the days of Eisenhower and shows the GDP growth under each of those presidents. And you can see that, in fact, Donald Trump's economy was far from the best ever. In fact, it was only the 8th out of the 11 last economies. And that's not even counting the virus. That is before the virus. And many of these other presidents had recessions, they had challenges, and so forth. If you add in the effects of the virus, what you would find is that Donald Trump's economy was, in fact, the worst of all 11 of these past presidents. He mentioned manufacturing last night. And he has talked a lot about manufacturing during his time in office. And it is true that when he first came in and passed those tax cuts, and you heard about those tax cuts last night, of which 85% of the benefit went to wealthy people and to business, it did help manufacturing in the short run. But then he got into a tariff war. And the tariff war actually drove down our growth in manufacturing jobs. In fact, again, even before the pandemic, you can see that by the end of the fourth quarter of 2019, we were, in fact, adding no manufacturing jobs whatsoever. And since the virus hit, we've, in fact, started to lose manufacturing jobs, a total of 734,000 so far this year. And then to the last question, Mika, on the question of who would help the economy more. This chart that we're going to put up now is from Moody's. It is a nonpartisan, impartial service. And what it says is basically that Biden, in fact, would help the economy more. Biden, with a split Congress between Democrats and Republicans, would be 3.5% GDP growth. Trump, with a split conference, would only be 3.2. A Democratic sweep would actually lead to 4.2% growth in the economy versus only 3.1% under the Republicans. And this is because if the Democrats get in office, as you heard the vice president say last night, he has a package of plans. He has robust plans to address all of our problems, unlike the president, who you heard last night really didn't articulate anything of a second-term agenda. So here you have an independent economist, Moody's, saying, in fact, contrary to perhaps some people's guesses, that a Biden presidency would be better for the economy than a second term of Donald Trump, Mika.
So, Steve, these are remarkable charts, and I'd love to go back to the Trump economy compared to the other presidents. Really quickly, just to underline this one more time, not so much for Donald Trump, because he knows he's lying about it, but for news people that over the past 4 years have taken Donald Trump's bluster as reality, when in fact, even before the pandemic, Donald Trump and his economy grew more slowly than Eisenhower's, than JFK's, than LBJ's, than Nixon's. It grew slower than Jimmy Carter's economy, and of course grew slower than Ronald Reagan's economy. So if you take all of the post-war presidents, save Truman, Donald Trump is 7th out of 11. That is not even close to the best economy ever. It's, in fact, one of the worst since World War II.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Joe. And in fact, a fact that came out last night in the debate that I've used in other charts with you guys is in the last 3 years of Obama's presidency, the Obama-Biden administration created more jobs in its last 3 years than Donald Trump created in his first 3 years. So the idea that he's the greatest jobs creator in history is also not true. And as you point out, all of these other presidents, they faced their economic challenges. They faced stagflation. They faced recessions. They faced wars. They faced plenty of other issues. And yet Donald Trump has one of the worst economic records of any president since World War II.
Well, and that's why our lower third shouldn't say Trump economy was not the best ever. If we're going to be more accurate, it would actually be Trump has one of the worst economies in the post-war era. Steve Rattner, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
We appreciate you getting the facts to us. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.